Welcome back to the Stellium Astrology podcast. I'm Stephanie James, and today I'm going to be talking to you about fire signs because I wanted to get into the elements. The elements are kind of the building blocks of astrology, along with the modes, which I'll be talking about in future episodes. But for today, I wanted to talk about fire, which is the element of the first sign of the zodiac. So, just to really give you a picture of how the elements are laid out on the zodiac wheel, if you draw a circle on a piece of paper and divide the circle equally into equal parts by 3, so you've got an equilateral triangle, then the fire signs will be exactly at the tips of those points of the corners of the equilateral triangle that you've drawn, placing them at 120 degrees apart. So if you think about signs that are connected by element, so the fire signs are Aries, Leo and Sagittarius. So Aries is the first sign, Leo is the 5th sign, and Sagittarius is the 9th sign of the zodiac. Now, if you want to think about the earth elements, you literally move the triangle along one sign and each tip of the triangle will be pointing at the earth elements, and then again for the air signs and then also for the water signs. But we'll come back to fire for now. And with this kind of 120 degree distance between each of the elements, there does tend to be a kind of ease and flowing of energy, if you want to use that word. It's a kind of nice sense of ease and a kind of natural aptitude or compatibility with one another. So if you do have planets plotted in your chart that happen to be, maybe lots of different planets dotted about that happen to be in fire signs, then there will be a higher presence of the fire element in your chart. So really what the elements do is that they're a basic kind of perception and processing of, stimuli in your environment. So it kind of breaks down to a kind of our impulses and our urges and our needs in how we interact with our environment. And for fire, it's the impulse is to instigate and, to create something, to get something started, to do something meaningful. And if it's already happening, if it's already been instigated, then it's to discern the meaning behind it and where it starts and where it finishes. So essentially, fire signs really make something happen. And for me to really kind of get into the elements, I like to really imagine myself in that element or close to that element. So for me, a fire sign, to really embody the sense of fire, is to think about the heat, to think about the way that it rises. And fire tends to symbolise cleansing. We talk about the phoenix rising from the ashes, but to rise from the ashes, it has to burn first. So it destroys. Fire can destroy, but it has a sense of renewal. And a great way to think about that is in the summertime. Sometimes farmers want to renew the soil to put, the kind of real nutritional value back into the soil, ready for it to be a good place to start growing new crops. And so they burn the existing crops and the ash nourishes the ground. So that's a great way to imagine that sense of destroying but also renewing. And like I said, fire burns, it's hot, but it can draw us out. If you think about when there's lovely hot days, I know especially in the UK, as soon as the sun comes out, everybody's at the beach. It's just that they really want to just bathe in that heat. And if you don't live near the sea, if you don't live near, anywhere that's particularly a sunbathing spot, people will be out, just having barbecues in their back gardens. There's a real solar kind of fiery, consistent presence in our lives. But fire isn't just about the sun, it's that essence that we're working with. So yes, it's hot, it draws us out, and fire is quite direct as well. But it can be too hot. When it gets really hot, it can be overwhelming. It can get out of control if not monitored. If you think about a building burning, you can't just spray water anywhere. You have to spray it at the base of the flames to dull the fire, because the fire can just, if it gets hot enough, it literally can travel anywhere, and it can get out of control very quickly. So fire can be excessive. So if you do have a strong fire presence in your chart, you may recognise that you can be excessive at times, and maybe you do have points in your life where you decide that, you want to cleanse an area and start fresh. There's a very strong sense of inspiration with fire, but also, there's, if we're going to break it down a bit more, it's considered to be very masculine energy, quite yang, and it's very conscious of itself. And when I say masculine, I'm not trying to, go with gender pronouns here. Masculinity, in a sense, is not necessarily about being male or, the masculine and feminine being male or female, but there's a sense of action and extroverted nature with masculine energies in the natal chart. So really, for fire, like I said before, there's this drive to establish, to instigate, and to find meaning. There's this sensing with fire, and it's quite visionary. It likes to instigate. It's quite independent. A lot of people with fire, strong fire in their charts, particularly like fire moons, they have a need to sort of be independent. They want to break away and explore and do things their own way. It's quite extroverted, as I think I've already said, and very inspirational. The fire signs in my life, I find very inspirational people, and they have a kind of connection or astuteness that's very they just have a sense of something, or they just have a kind of, I think all the signs have an intuition, but their intuition is very different for each sign. And I think for the fire signs, they have a kind of almost like a sense of knowing. A connectedness. It kind of just falls into their head. They tend to be quite inspirational people, and they are upbeat and optimistic and joyful and positive and quite buoyant. Heat rises, and the fire signs tend to be quite buoyant and quite joyful. I think Sue Tompkins says in her book, kind of that Tigger embodiment of their personality. They're very Tigger-like. And my experience of fire signs is that they tend to have great hair generally. If there's a lot of fire in the chart, usually you'll see fire signs do have quite good hair. Obviously there's other chart factors that might contradict this, but at the moment, if we're just focusing on an element, there can be a tendency to having this really wonderful flowing mane. Not just specifically Leos. I just find that with a lot of fire signs. The other thing I've noticed about fire signs, or people with strong fire in their chart, is they tend to sleep naked. A lot of them do, not all of them, but there's this kind of body thermostat just runs hot all the time. So, sometimes fire signs are drawn to the heat and they enjoy it, but sometimes they are just hot. They're just really hot. And a good tip, if your body does run hot, from somebody I know who had some strong fire in their chart, they put a bottle of water in the freezer, and then at night time in the summer when it's hot, they wrap some layers of clothes around it, wrap it in a blanket, and they hug a frozen bottle of water while they try to get to sleep. That's a great tip for fire signs who do run hot. So actually, if you do lack an element, there tends to be undervaluing the qualities or having less control over it. So for fire signs, generally the signs that have a bit of vavavoom and a little bit of oomph, they tend to, if you don't have much fire in your chart, then there can be a lack of oomph, and there may be a struggle to take up leadership, or to feel like you can lead with confidence. Perhaps they don't feel as inspired, and maybe they don't have a strong sense of confidence in themselves to an extent. Also, perhaps they're not so visionary as somebody with a stronger fire signature. And leaning towards more of a pessimistic outlook can be a lack of fire, and not being as risk-taking. So the fire signs tend to be known for being quite daring and quite bold and taking risks, particularly Sagittarius, who likes to gamble. and just believes in having a good outcome, believes in the best outcome. With a lack of fire, there can be not taking risks, and that can be rightfully so, because they may have taken risks in the past and they may not have worked out in their favour. And, generally fire signs, in their search for meaning or feeling a sense of meaning, they can tend to, with somebody that lacks fire, can tend to look for a middleman to connect them to that sense of meaning, or something that connects them to that sense of meaning without being directly connected themselves. So somebody who seeks perhaps going to the church, or going to a clairvoyant or to an astrologer, because they don't have that natural connection to their higher self, or they perhaps lack that ability to follow their inner compass as much. So it's not that they don't have that connection, it's just that perhaps they don't feel connected enough to their own sense of divinity, or believe that they don't believe they have enough of an influence over their own direction in life, so they look for guidance in that area. I know we all do at times, so this is just a basic kind of overview of what the element fire kind of represents and what it can look like if it lacks in your chart. So I am going to look at a couple of charts for people who have sent them in to me. And one person I wanted to talk about was Lucy W., who was born in Truro, and she has got 5 planets in fire. She has her sun and moon in fire in Aries, and she has her Mercury and Venus in fire as well in Aries. And she also has Uranus in Sagittarius on the midheaven. So Uranus in Sagittarius isn't such a big deal, because Uranus is such a slow-moving planet. I believe it takes about 7 years to transit each zodiac sign, approximately. And it's because it's so slow-moving, it's a generational planet. But because it's on the midheaven, which is a very fast-moving, calculated point in the chart, it's the highest point, and it sort of moves. The midheaven and the ascendant tend to move a degree roughly every 4 minutes. Basically, that makes that much more poignant in her chart. So to have fire on the midheaven and to have Uranus there, it definitely brings, Uranus is already quite an independent and quite, unpredictable, unconventional planet. To be in a fire sign, it gives it that sense of, having to do things their own way. It's quite impulsive and it's quite instigative, and it really does want to seek out, something original and something unique. And it's very self-sufficient in a sense. So having this chart, this strong Aries presence in the chart, and this strong fiery presence in the chart, it has a sense of, from a very early age, because it involves her moon and her, all of her personal planets, from a very early age, Lucy will have been probably quite headstrong and wanting to do things her own way. And it may be difficult for parents with children that have strong fire, because they can be quite independent from a young age and wanting to break away. But actually, there is a sense of really being able to rely upon themselves to get things done, and quite inspired, and like having that sense, like I said, there is that real sense of being able to bring things into fruition, or to get things started. So fire is quite a good, productive, confident element to have present in the chart. Lucy, you've got a strong fire presence. You may relate to some of the things I've talked about. And we've got Carolina as well. Let's get Carolina's chart and have a quick look. So Carolina, one of my subscribers, she has got a stellium in Sagittarius. She has Neptune, Jupiter, Mercury and Venus all in Sagittarius. And she also has, just out of sign, she has her sun in Scorpio. So she doesn't have she doesn't have her sun or moon or ascendant in fire, but she does have a lot of fire in her chart, because she does have 4 planets. And Neptune, another one of those generational planets that moves really, really slowly. I think approximately 14 years per sign. That being in conjunction with her sun, it brings her sun into the stellium. So even though her sun is in a water sign, and it definitely will be processed through water, she still has a strong fire presence in her chart. So there is a sense of struggle or conflict because the sun in water, in conjunction with Neptune, a watery outer planet, happens to be in a fire sign and connected to 3 other planets in fire as well. So there is a real sense of, wanting to go deep with Scorpio, but actually this fire also wants to let go of stuff that is deep and dark and drags you down to an extent. So Carolina, we may look at your chart a little bit later because you do have a stellium, just like Lucy did, in fire, and that's an interesting one to look at. And another subscriber, Angelique, who is in Croydon, and Angelique has got her moon in Leo, and she has Jupiter, Venus and Saturn all in Aries, sitting quite high in the chart. And she has Chiron, which is an asteroid, and Pluto sitting in Sagittarius. So she's got she's got planets in each of the fire signs. So she's got a bit of each element. So actually, Angelique, you have quite a lot going on there in fire signs. So you'd probably quite relate to some of this. And there is a kind of, with the fire signs, we'd associate drama with Leo, but there is a drama with each of the fire signs. And with Leo, perhaps it's actual drama, and they do enjoy, where there isn't drama, creating some, and, really getting into play and pretending to be other people to an extent. That's kind of what acting is. But with Aries, there's like the drama of the competition. And, like when you think about sports, there's this kind of competitive element that really fires up this drama within you. And with Sagittarius, there's this kind of drama of the world stage. So it could be the drama of politics, or it could be the drama of, what's going on in the world with international competition, like the Olympics, for example. So there's a real, it can be quite dramatic, very enthusiastic. And it's interesting when you have a stronger presence in your chart that kind of contradicts, the stronger presence of elements can contradict sometimes the actual natal placements you have. But for Angelique, she definitely does have a Leo moon, so there is a need for play and for fun, and definitely can be a little bit dramatic. And it might not just describe you, Angelique, but it may describe actually a little bit like what your mum was like, because your moon actually tends to be what your mum is as well. So you may recognise that your mum might be a bit demonstrative and dramatic at times, and she may also have had fabulous hair, and I don't doubt for a second that you do either. You must have great hair. So Angelique, you've got quite a lot of fire going on in your chart, which brings in all of the elements, which is quite nice because to an extent there is a balanced expression, even though in Sagittarius you do only have Pluto, which is kind of the another one of those generational slow moving planets, which can take years and years. I think at the moment it is in Capricorn at the moment, and it's going to take, I don't think it's leaving Capricorn I think it's going to be there for, oh my gosh, how many years has it been there? 20 years will it be in Capricorn? Anyway, I don't know off the top of my head. I can't think without looking. So, Angelique, you've got loads of fire in your chart, and we'll probably be looking at you again at some point soon. And I thought I'd pick out somebody who doesn't have a lot of fire in their chart. And this is somebody another one of my subscribers, Ali B. Ali B from Canada, Toronto. Now, Ali, you have given me your chart to have a look at. Now, you do have a couple of placements in fire. So you've got Neptune on the midheaven in fire. And like I said, the midheaven is the highest point, and so it's elevated, and it's kind of like the career point on where we focus and what we aspire to. And you've got Chiron in Aries. Now, Chiron's not a planet, so I don't tend to look too much at Chiron in the kind of, when I'm doing planetary weightings, when I'm looking at, how heavily weighted your chart is to an element. But you could say that with this one, having a Chiron at 29 Aries speaks about that lack of fire actually in your chart, because there can be almost a lack of confidence, or almost like a fear perhaps, in actually trying to do something that embodies that fiery quality. So she's got Sun, Venus and Jupiter in Taurus, and she has Moon and Uranus in water in Scorpio. So that's quite a fixed seesaw, but we'll get onto the fixed signs when I do the modes. But she's also got Pluto in Libra, and she also has Cancer and Saturn in, Mars and Saturn in Cancer. So you've got a lot of water in your chart, Ali, and you also have quite a lot of earth, but fire kind of lacks for you. And like I said, you've got that Neptune on the midheaven in Sagittarius. And Neptune, I already touched on it before. I think I spoke about it. I can't remember whose chart had Neptune in conjunction with the Sun in Scorpio. But actually that is a strong, I think it was Carolina actually. But having Neptune anywhere in the chart is not very clear. I know a lot of people who do have Neptune in Sagittarius, because there's a whole generation of people born with Neptune in Sagittarius. And if you've got Sun in Sagittarius and other planetary placements in Sagittarius, there is a kind of sense of not really being able to identify with it, because Neptune can make it very difficult to... it clouds things. It makes things very unclear. It's quite nebulous. And having it on the midheaven in fire, there is a sense of perhaps, Neptune is a very compassionate planet, and Sagittarius is quite a compassionate sign. So there is a sense of really needing to do something meaningful, and this may be how you express your fire in your chart, because even though you don't have a lot of it, that this is a channel for you to really work on fire and work with people, aspiring to people who have strong fire signatures in their chart. But this Chiron placement in Aries describes a sense of, perhaps a fear of trying to do things, or a fear of independence and trying to do things and lead in your own way. There may be, with all that Taurus stuff following on from that Chiron, there may be a sense of leaning towards the way things have already been done. And Taurus likes to be comfortable, so there's a sense of falling into the comfort zone and, wanting to do things the tried and tested way rather than doing things the risk-taking and daring way. So that's just touching really on, what the lack in this particular chart as far as fire is concerned is like. But like I said, there's a lot of water and earth in that chart, so it could be that this is a productive and very connected. There's a sense of ability to connect on an emotional level. So there are a lot of stronger elements where you will probably come into your own, but with fire, like I said, the lack can be maybe a lack of being able to lead, not feeling like they trust their own inspiration or having that inspiration, that creative ability. And, lacking confidence to an extent in those kind of areas. And maybe leaning towards caution and pessimism as well. So a lack of fire, like I said, can present as being not as optimistic. But these are not curses. This is not terrible things. We all have our strengths in different areas. So I thought I would just cover that today. And a few celebrities who have fire placements, Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera, they both have a number of planets in Sagittarius. I seem to be picking up on Sagittarius today, actually, because I also thought Jimi Hendrix was a good one to look at. Jimi Hendrix has Sun, Venus and Mercury all in Sagittarius, and it's his rising sign as well. And Jimi Hendrix is a really inspired guitarist who really did things differently. There's a lot of different things that you could look at in the chart which might describe why he had to do things differently. But we're looking at the essence of Jimmy's chart, and really a really strong fire presence in the chart describes somebody that has to make things happen, is very inspirational and has to kind of, search for a sense of, for him it was kind of originality and doing things his own way. He definitely broke the mould. So Jimi Hendrix is a really interesting one, but there's plenty of fiery celebrities out there. Christina out there doing her thing, Christina Aguilera. I think she's got Venus, Mercury, Sun and Neptune in Sagittarius, and her midheavens, so known for doing things, she's quite an inspired singer herself. Always, I think, with Christina, the hair. I always look at her lovely flowing fiery mane, and she's definitely quite original. And the other thing about fire signs is that they kind of inspire enthusiasm and confidence in other people and optimism in other people as well, and they do tend to get noticed a lot more easily as well, the fire signs. They are just very outwardly expressive and quite demonstrative. So if you want to look at Christina's chart, Jimmy's chart, and where's Brittany's chart? I don't know if I've still got her one up. No, I don't think I do anymore. But Brittany, again, has a very similar chart not similar chart, but she has similar planets in her Sagittarius to Christina. So I just happened to pick 3 Sagittarians there for some reason, probably because I have Sagittarius on my descendant, and I don't have a lot of planets in fire either, if you're wondering. I do have Jupiter in fire, and I have Uranus in fire, and I have Neptune in fire, and my descendant in fire, but that's about it. So like the slower moving planets, Jupiter's quite a good one to have in fire. But yeah, I do admire fire qualities in other people, and I attract that too because it's on my descendant and my kind of attracting relationship area. So that's a little bit about fire. And if you've enjoyed this, I just wanted to invite you to take part. I am using listener charts as well as pointing you towards celebrity charts to have a little look at. And the way to have your chart featured is to fill out the application form that I send to my subscribers. So go to my website, sign up as a subscriber, and you can fill out the form, and I'll check it in with that and see where you fit in. And doesn't mean I'll only talk about you once. I might talk about you in a few different episodes because you may fit a few different areas of discussion. And if you are listening to me on iTunes, it would be really great of you if you could to subscribe to the podcast, to rate it and to review it. And I will give you a shout out for doing so. I've got quite a few people I need to shout out, and I'm going to give them a little shout out in the next episode. So thanks for tuning in. If you've enjoyed this, if you have a strong fire presence, if you relate to what I'm saying, send me a message, comment. You can even put it down in the reviews underneath. You could even come to my website where I'm going to put a post up and share some of the links that I've discussed today and comment over there. But definitely connect with me and let me know what you think. And if you think that you know somebody who's quite fiery or lacks it, share the episode with them too. Take care. Bye now.